Hi everyone, and welcome to day 3 of Author Nation. I'm here with the author Tony Lee, and it's been great to speak to Tony because there's someone I've wanted to have on the show for a long time. So thanks for joining, Tony.
Oh, thank you for inviting me along.
So how have you found the show so far?
Oh, it's great. Anybody who is a want-to-be self-publishing author or anything like that, you have to come to events like this.
Yeah.
You don't have to. You can stay at home and write and publish, but you're missing out on so many things.
Yeah.
The talks are amazing. The conversations in the hallway are always incredible.
Yeah.
Somebody turned around to me and said in June in London, the self-publishing show, or whatever it's now called, when you go to the show and you see people going for the talks, you look around to see who's outside having meetings.
Yeah.
Because the people who are outside are the ones who don't need to do the talks, but they're still there.
Yeah.
And if you're a 7-figure author and you're still turning up, then you know there's something to gain.
Yeah. It's about that serendipity, I think, of being in the right place at the right time.
Oh, yeah.
And, you're never going to get that anywhere else.
Yeah, it's being with your peers and your tribes. And someone said to me, it's their Christmas party this year.
Yeah.
Because you don't get one if you're on your own.
No, yeah, that's a really good point. Yeah. It is literally your party, and especially being in Las Vegas, you can have a good party.
There's been a lot of people having their Christmas parties this week.
So just before we came onto the show, we were having a really good conversation. I just wanted to kind of relay some of it, because talking about that serendipity thing. So you're obviously a very senior author. Lots of people here are like starting out, or there's lots of different levels here. But even you're, with all the books you've written, are finding problems. You're fixing problems by being here.
This is the thing that I was saying to somebody the other day is I've been professionally writing for 38 years.
Yeah.
I'm 54 years old. I was 16 when I started. I was a games reviewer for like a Spectrum comic magazine kind of thing. And then basically just dropped out of college. I was about to go to university. I didn't do that. I ended up just writing magazines, and then became a journalist, and then worked in marketing. I then did comics, and I did film and TV. I did all this stuff for 34 years. I've only been doing the novels for 4.
Yeah.
So although it's, I'm an elder statesman of writing, I'm not really, because there's still this element where I'm walking up to people who've been doing this since 2011.
Yeah.
And these guys have learned it to a fine art, and I'm still the new boy on the block.
Yeah.
And yes, I've had a bit of a meteoric upwards wise, but at the same time, a lot of that does come from the stuff I've done in the past.
Yeah.
So it does kind of play the way that goes through.
Do you think so? Most of your success has come with the books, the most recent books you've had, and obviously the stuff you did before has built up to where it's come now. Or I think mixture.
Oh, I mean, I make more a month than I used to a year.
Yeah.
End of. And I was writing films and TV and comics and everything.
Yeah.
And now it's just a completely different world.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't have been doing this if I hadn't done all these years.
Yeah.
I mean, the running joke in comics is there's several writers I know, people like Paul Cornell, people like that. Paul Cornell got into comics and won the Rising Star, the Best New Star Award. And he'd been writing for 20 years.
Yeah.
And that's how I kind of feel with this. It's just like, I've been writing for 34 years before I started doing this. And everyone's going like, you're an overnight success. It's like, I'm really not.
Yeah.
But I trained a lot to be that overnight success. I did 34 years of preparing to be that overnight success. So I think it has helped. I mean, as a freelance writer for many years, I was full-time freelance in 2008. I was writing comics since 2004. Before that, I was working as a contracted person for various places. But all the things I'd learned over the years, the hustling, the trying to get work from editors, self-publishing comics, stuff like that, all of that is business. All of that is data. And coming into this, okay, so I'm going to say something I said in the talk, and it's relevant, I think, to what you're saying there. Yeah. The thing that taught me the most from my history to now, there's a lot of people who think that they are a self-published writer. Yeah. And I'm a self-published author, and that's great, because they are a writer who has self-published.
Yeah.
But my years of hustling and grinding and stuff like that showed me that, no, you're not. The successful people here don't think of themselves as writers who self-publish.
No.
The people here who are successful class themselves as publishers who also write. Yeah. Because they now understand how the entire process works. And my years writing comics and doing the things like that, you're working with an artist, with a letterer, with a colorist, with an editor. You see the whole thing. So I think because I saw the whole thing, I learned very quickly that writing's exactly the same. But if you start as a writer and you're just on your own, you don't see the big picture until you come to a place like this and learn.
Yeah. I mean, I think one of the main themes that keeps coming up on this podcast is people don't necessarily see their writing business as a business. They see it as just them writing, which,
it's a passion.
It's
and
fine.
then it becomes a business.
Yeah, you've got to think about it as a business, which is basically what this whole show's about.
Yeah.
So in your talk, let's go an overview of what your talk was.
Yes.
That's fine. So what was your talk about?
So I was supposed to be here last year, but we had a death in the family, so I wasn't able to come along. Last year I was going to do a talk for Craig, which was about writing scenes. And it was a kind of maybe I'll do it, because I do a lot of talks about things like Chekhov's gun and writing characters and stuff like that. And mainly it's because I do these lectures for screenwriters and for comic writers and stuff like that. And then when Joe took over this and said, hey, would you like to come along to this? He said, would you do the same talk? And I said, I can, but it's a really difficult one to do, because a lot of these places, a lot of these panels and craft talks is someone going, hey, I'm an expert in this, and I will now show you how to do this. And when you walk out, you have learned how to do this. Telling someone how to write a scene is impossible, because scenes are completely different.
Yeah.
If you are a romance writer, your scene will be different to someone doing a World War II action adventure. The scenes are snappier, they're faster, it's more explosions.
Yeah.
So when I said to Joe, I said, look, I can't really do this talk the way it is, but I can do it as an overview to a whole load of other stuff. And he said, yeah, go for it. So it became more of the mindset of someone writing a scene, how you get yourself into a particular mindset, how the items that are needed in a scene can help you with that mindset. But it ended with like a checklist of 12 things that every scene should have. And if anybody in that audience does 3 of them in a scene, they're still doing better. And that was kind of where I was going with it, was basically, look, these are things that make your scene better, but at the same time, you don't have to use any of them. Your scene is still good.
Yeah.
Simple as that.
So were you going through how to structure a scene? Was that the main point?
Structuring a scene, things that you need to... little things like, for example, if you're going to have a scene, you need to work out your scene. There's 2 types of scene. There's scenes and sequels. So, your first scene will give you a kind of what's going on with the scene and how it works. But the second part, the sequel, is the consequences of the previous scene.
Right.
So if Joanne finds out that John is cheating on her at the end of scene 1, scene 2 is going to be the reaction to what goes on with that. You can't just, Joanne's now in a supermarket having another scene. You've got to show that reaction. But at the same time, there was more of an element of, is the scene, okay, and again, if I'm writing a novel and I'm a traditionally published writer and I've got an editor and we're doing our scenes, the chances are I've gone back and rewritten a scene or gone back a couple of times. So what my talk was a lot of was, well, if you're a pantser or a discovery writer or an organic writer, you might just be putting a scene in as a placeholder. That's not wrong. There's no wrong side to this. There's no wrong way of doing a scene, because you might come back later on and use that scene to fill up a plot point that you didn't think of. And I've done it a dozen times where I've realized 50,000. I mean, part of my process is I will write an 80,000 word book, and I'll get to 50,000 words, and I will go back to page 1 and go through those first 50,000 words again, because I've just killed the murderer.
Right.
I got bored, or something else has happened, or I've gone, wait, this is an exact example of that, and that leads to that, and there's a scene I know I left here earlier on where I can now have him pick up something that I can go, if you notice in this scene, he had this thing, and therefore I'm super clever.
Yeah.
Because that's how it is. In comics, you learn to write backwards.
Yeah.
Because you have to, because you're given real estate to start. So as a writer of writing these sort of books, I'm writing backwards.
Yeah.
So I just get to the end, get to the thing, put the MacGuffin in. If you've got a scene where something has to happen, just make it happen. You can go back and make it prettier on the edit draft. And that's, again, with scenes, that's what I was explaining in the talk was, look, you don't have to write the ultimate American novel scene. You just have to get to the end of the scene. You can come back later and change it, or delete it, or work it through.
Yeah. Did you have any good questions from the audience about it?
No. And I say that in a good way, because I've been to a lot of conventions and conferences, Comic Con, stuff like that, and I hate it where someone comes on stage to do a 45-minute talk, talks for 10 minutes, and then just goes, any questions?
Yeah.
And the reason I don't like it is I do school talks, and I talk to kids at school, and I hate it when they do that, because kids don't want to ask questions in front of other people. And you'll get a lot of people who don't want to ask the question in front of people. They'll rather come and find you on your own. So why not just cut the middleman out? Do a 45-minute panel.
Yeah.
Show everything. Talk about everything. and then let them come to you over the weekend and talk to you. And I've had people come to me over the weekend and say, that, and the biggest one I find is a lot of people going, I write cozy romance. Also, visceral, erotic, psychological horror.
Yeah.
How do I make a difference with my scenes? And you're like, I've got no idea.
Yeah.
How do you do it at the moment? Yeah, that's fine. And there's an element of that. I've had a lot of questions about AI.
Okay. Yeah.
With I have AI write the way that my scene should look, and because I base it on tropes based on other things. Should I be doing this? And again, there's no wrong way to write a scene. There's wrong ways to do a dozen different things in this industry, but writing a scene is personal.
Do you use AI for any of your like writing or organising or anything?
I use AI in my work in the same way that somebody would use, say, Pro Writing Aid or Grammarly. Somebody said to me, "I've never ever used AI in my scenes, and I think it's abhorrent." And I said, "Okay, it's fine. Do you write with Word?" And they went, "Yes." I goes, "Did you ever use Clippy, the little Microsoft thing?" And they went, "Well, yes." I went, "That's similarly the same thing.
Yeah,
it's helping you do something. It's finding a way to go fast." With me, I dictate a lot because I walk my dog and stuff like that, so I'll be dictating, and I can write fast, but I can speak faster, as you're noticing now. So if I'm walking my dog, I'll have a recorder sort of on my pin, or I'll have, so it's not my microphone now, I'll have a recorder on my pin, or I'll have a thing in my hand, and I'll just chat for like 20 minutes. I'll take the MP3 of that audio, I'll put it into Whisper AI, that will transcribe it for me. I use Whisper AI mainly because it will pick up things that are lost in noise, because the AI can understand how the sentence will structure. I then have a self-created app in ChatGTP, which is basically saying, you are an editor. I have given you a piece of dialogue that I've dictated. You understand how dictation works. You understand that sometimes there are duplicates. Sometimes I've said the wrong name. Sometimes I've stammered. I'm not going to be saying things like line break, speech mark, etc. So add those in. If you see shorthand versions of things like Mr., make full word, numbers, full words, stuff like that. But I have a massively long list of all the things you must do, and then an equally long list of all the things you cannot do. You cannot create anything new in this thing. This is my text. You can edit my text, but I don't want you rewriting my text. I don't want you adding stuff at the end. You are just literally cleaning my text. And then I go. And then that text gets put in, it comes through, it's 80% okay. I then put that into Scrivener, and then I will edit it. And I will line edit it line by line. But it means that I'll spend half an hour line editing something that I spoke in a dog walk that was dead time. And now I'm 3,000 words into my day.
Yeah, amazing.
And that's literally how I'll be doing most of my writing. Long drives, dog walking, genuinely has written probably about 40% of my last 10 books.
Yeah. You should create a course on how to do that dictation and use that edit. That'd be really interesting.
No, I don't have enough time. See, I've been talking about it to various people, and a lot of people dictate. There's a lovely guy here who he says I go and walk up and down Santa Monica Boulevard, and I talk into my thing, and I get like 6,000 words, and then I send it to this guy who transcribes it for me.
Yeah.
And everybody on the table just looked at him. It's like, have you not heard of Whisper?
Yeah.
And they took one of his things and put it in, and he was just looking at it going, I've spent so much money. I don't want people having a go at me because I've told them something that they didn't realize they could do.
Yeah.
But also, I don't want them doing that. I want to be the fast person. They can be the slow people.
Yeah.
Then my books come out faster, and I sell more books.
Yeah, definitely.
But it is. AI is. Joanna Penn is a great proponent of AI, but she's had so much crap about it from people. And I come from comics, and I've seen the AI stuff. We were talking on the comic panel today. Myself and Rob Napton, who's the vice president of like Legendary Comics and stuff. I do a lot of Facebook ads, but I suffer because I can't use AI ads because I can't use AI image. But I work with artists, and that's I can't do that. But so many people here are like, nah, AI ads, bam, done, make millions. Great, I can't do that. So that's an area that I have to look at and play with that. With AI, I can't write the story with AI because I feel that's kind of, you're scraping, AI scrapes from other people. So I'm taking other people's work. But as an editor, I'm not taking the work because it's stuff I would be doing. I'm just saving myself an hour here or half an hour there, which over time gives me more time to then work on the next book.
Yeah.
And so therefore it gives me that chance to rapid release.
Do you work with a developmental editor in any of your books, or do you just do it the method you just talked about?
I do have a couple of developmental editors who I sit down at the start, who are basically fans of my books, who are fans of the genre. Weirdly, crime is 65-year-old women. It's the biggest demographic in that. So I will sit down with a lot of people who are fans of my book, and I have a Facebook page, a Facebook group, sorry, where when I'm talking about my next book, I will say things like, "Hey, I'm thinking about this. What kind of things would you like to see?" And I get a lot of back and forth on where the story should go. Crime is simple. There's a crime, they solve it. My audience has already told me they don't care about the crime. They just want something weird and a bit fun and basically banter with the cops. So I'm not like very much a very serious, detailed story. I'm more like the late Chris Fowler and his Peculiar Crimes Unit, more that kind of Midsummer Murders kind of thing.
Yeah.
And not cozy because there's bodies, but that kind of style. But then what I'll do is once I've got it worked out, I will then sit down and I will break it down, and I won't work out a full treatment, but I'll know where my path is. And then I'll start writing, and then 50,000 words in, I will be so far off the path, I'm having tea in a gingerbread house. And so I have to then rewrite it and come back to it. And then once it's done, it's not done. That's the vomit draft. That's the get it out, get it done, move it on. I will then revise it. I'll edit it. I will then do a pro writing aid draft just to see if I've got double times or if there's points I've used that too many times and stuff like that. And then I'll send it to 2 editors. One is plot based, one is proof readings or line by line. They'll give me their notes. I redo the notes. I send it to 2 more editors. One is an expert in weaponry and guns. I do apologise. It's the aircon. It's killing me.
Yeah, it's horrible, isn't it?
One's an expert in weaponry, guns, that kind of thing. One is another expert in just picking the small things out. Then it gets redone again, and then I basically then send it. I set it in vellum. I send it to the beta readers, and then they send me their notes, and then it's ready to go. So I've gone through like about 5 levels before I've even sent it out there. So but for me that works because the plot editor sometimes will come back and go, "I don't get this." And then I realised that in the developmental stage, I didn't go far enough at this point. But that's good to know because then that means I can then come in and fix it now before anybody else is getting it.
Yeah.
I know writers who go, I write it, I do an edit pass, and then I upload it.
Yeah.
And then they don't understand why they're getting 3-star reviews.
Right, yeah.
I've got 35 books out over 4 years. I have over 75,000 5-star ratings. Most of that is because I've sat down with editors. And even now, I still get people who send me emails going, "Hello, in this book, you said this, when actually I think you meant this."
Right.
And I immediately reply and go, "Thank you so much. I will fix this right now. Please become one of my beta readers."
Yeah.
Straight away. Join my team. I want you to tell me more about the things I've done wrong.
Yeah.
Because otherwise I won't know.
Yeah, that's a really good idea. Now, your books, the Jack Gatlin books.
Jack Gatlin.
Jack Gatlin.
Yeah.
Jack Butlin's the footballer.
Yes.
The Jack Gatlin books. They're your first novels as opposed to comics. So when you were writing those, did you read any books or anything to learn how to write a novel compared to how you were writing before?
So back in 2011, back 2008, I'd written a graphic novel for a company called AIT. And it was basically Oliver Twist, 12 years on. So it was What Happened Next, called Dodge and Twist. And it was basically, it was Ocean's 11 if written by Charles Dickens.
Right.
Something. And we were doing it as a comic, and I was at a New York Comic Con speaking to a couple of guys. And I mentioned I was doing it, and they said, "Oh, we'd love that." And I said, "Oh, it's already option." I found out later that one of the guys, a guy called Ahmet Zappa, had basically said, "I really like that idea."
Yeah.
And, and obviously was really fixated with the idea. Fast forward to 2011, I'm going to Los Angeles. I'm actually only in the airport. My agent contacts me, my manager contacts me and says, "Is this you?" And as Columbia have released a PR thing saying, Ahmed Zappa, who is the same person I've spoken to, has announced his new film, Dodge and Twist, which is Oliver Twist, 12 years old.
Right.
And I'm like, but my book is called Dodge and Twist. He literally just done the entire thing.
Just copied it.
So I had to do a big thing saying it's not me, blah, blah, blah. And I thought, I can't get this done. So I sat down and in the space of about a month, wrote it and by this point, the graphic novel hadn't happened. The artist had stopped being an artist, which didn't help. But we had about 19 pages of art that had been online and an article, so I was able to prove it was something I'd done.
Yeah.
So I wrote the book, like literally in the space of about a month, and just uploaded it onto CreateSpace. Just dumped it up there very quickly. I don't think I even adapted it properly. I just wrote it so it's there. And that book has stayed on there for like 10 years.
Yeah.
It was just in the background. I didn't do anything else with it. And as it was, and eventually, like, you know, the next time I heard this, it was again in THR, and it was Ahmet Zappa, who's written this play, this film called Dodge and Twist, not to be confused with Tony Lee's Dodge and Twist. So I was just like, yes, okay, screw you. And but that was my first time I ever wrote prose. I hated it because as a comic writer and as a screenplay writer, you don't do the description.
Mm-hmm.
You just get straight into the action.
Yeah.
My wife is a prolific book reader. She eats books up. She thinks they're amazing. She did a dissertation on it and stuff like that. And the problem I had with it was, you know, the books she read, I'd read them and think, I can never write this. I can never do this. So when I got to doing Jack Gatlin, and it was desperation that got me to Jack Gatlin, pandemic got to a point where nothing else was working and I needed to pivot because I was going crazy. I realized I can't be that person. So I just decided to write my books like screenplays.
Right.
And I look back at how I did Dodge and Twist and went, yeah, I'm just going to do that. I'm just going to basically, you know, every book that I know in my genre was there's a murder.
Yeah.
Mine have 3 or 4.
Yeah.
You know, half the cast die by the end of it. You know, and I just kept bam, bam, bam. Here we go. Keep going. And that seemed to be the thing that made it work.
Great. So you just use your previous experience. You need to.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. 100%. Yeah.
Well, it's been great chatting. I mean, I'd love to carry on this conversation, but
you've got other people to go and speak to.
But yeah, no, this has been fantastic. I'd love to have you to come on to the show later on. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Just last before we go, so obviously you're in Vegas. Have you had a chance to do any Vegas-y things whilst you've been here, apart from get air conditions to death?
No, because this time I'm in and out. I flew in on Monday night, and I fly out today, Thursday, because I'm landing in London tomorrow, going straight to Olympia, and I'm running the comic zone of the London Comic Con. So I've been planning and getting stuff done. The only thing I did last year, 2 years ago when I came here, is I bought myself a chip.
Right.
So it's basically bought myself a $25 chip from the store, because this is the place I realised it's time to bet on yourself.
Yeah. And
I've got that on my desk now, and a little acrylic thing to show that I bet on myself. And since I did that, you know, I've beat the house as far as
that's your lucky mascot.
Yeah, absolutely.
Brilliant. Well, thanks so much for coming on, and
thank you.
Soon.
Thank you.